Hey. So in the last video, you organized to meet someone a couple of days from now for a one-on-one chat, right? Good job. So you walk into the cafe, you order your cappuccinos, and then you sit down together. And the conversation starts something like this. So how are you? What have you been up to lately? I'm pretty good. I've mostly just been working a lot. Haven't had much time for other things. Now I want you to come up with a response to that last comment. And then I'll cover what's good and bad about different types of responses that people give. And remember, we said yesterday that one of the things that makes a conversation feel meaningful is when both people make an effort to understand each other. So, which means your job is to learn about the other person, how they think about things, how they feel, what their internal experience is like. So you've got 10 seconds. What might you respond with if they said, I've mostly just been working. I haven't had much time for other things. If you still don't have a response, pause the video now and come up with something, because the next bit will make a lot more sense if you have your own idea to work with. Alright, so these are the three types of responses that people give to continue a conversation. Any response in any conversation will fit into at least one of these three categories as long as it advances the conversation. So some responses don't count, like, oh, nice, or that's cool, or oh my god, because they don't really have any content. So if I'm having a conversation, I can respond in three different ways. I can talk about me, or you, or it. So myself, the other person, or some external thing that isn't me or you. And that explanation might seem simple enough, but I bet that you get this wrong. So the first type of response is me, me, me. Around 20% of people respond this way, based on responses from my audience. And what they do is basically steer the conversation towards themselves, towards me. So in this case that we're talking about, in response to, I've mostly just been working a lot, they might say, I've barely been working at all. I've had so much free time. Or, I wish I had a job. Or, yeah, I've been working a lot too. I hate my job. I'm thinking about quitting, actually. Do you think I should? Steering the conversation towards yourself like that repeatedly is the opposite of making an effort to understand the other person. If you do it too often, you're basically hijacking the conversation. It might feel like a meaningful conversation to you because you've made yourself the center of attention, but it won't feel meaningful to the other person. It's great to share stuff about yourself because it helps the other person decide what to share about themselves, but you have to also make an effort to learn about the other person, because otherwise they'll feel like you don't really care about them and you won't build a strong connection with them. So that's the first type of response, me, me, me. And I think that's clear enough. The second type of response, you, you, is what you'll get from around 30% of people. And the people who do this steer the conversation towards the other person instead of towards themselves. So in response to, I've mostly just been working, they might say, how do you work so much and not go crazy? Or, oh, I hope you haven't been letting work get the better of you. Or, you enjoying it? Steering the conversation towards the other person like this is critical in developing meaningful connections. But the thing with this is, most of you probably think that you respond in this way, making an effort to understand the other person, but what you're actually probably doing is using the third type of response, which has a totally different effect. So 50% of people use the third type of response, which is it. Instead of talking about me or you, the other person in the conversation, you talk about some external thing, something that's not me or not you. So in response to, I've just been working, haven't had time for other things, you might say, are you working on anything interesting? And you might think you're steering the conversation towards the other person because you've started the sentence with, are you, ... But you're actually steering the conversation towards it, a thing, and that thing is work. So when they respond to, are you working on anything interesting, they're likely to say something like, yeah, I'm looking for a new customer for our business. But in order to have a meaningful conversation and to connect with this person, you don't want to find out what they're working on, because that's a thing that's external to them. You want to find out how they think about things, how they feel, what their internal experience is like. So instead of asking, are you working on anything interesting, you could ask, are you enjoying work? Because that steers the conversation towards their feelings and towards their internal experience around the idea of work, which then gives them permission to say something like, man, I love it. Like, sometimes it gets so challenging that I almost want to give up, but I wake up every morning with a massive heart on, ready to do it all over again. And now you're starting to understand them as a person, what goes on in their head. And they're far less likely to give you an answer like that if you steer the conversation towards some external thing, like if you ask, are you working on anything interesting? Okay, so one more example. If I respond to my friend's original statement with, how are things at work? Am I steering the conversation towards learning about my friend or learning about some external thing? Do you have an answer? It depends on how they interpret it. I've left it open to going either way, which means I'm not actively steering the conversation towards them, because they could respond with something like, it's stressing me out, or I'm loving it, which is about them and about their internal experience. Or on the other hand, they could respond with something like, I think I might get a promotion soon, or we got this new intern the other day, he's such a dick. And those are both external things. So if you want to have a meaningful conversation about their internal experience, instead of asking, how are things at work, ask something like, how do you not go crazy from spending so much time there? Because then they pretty much have to answer about how they think about things, how they feel, because you're steering the conversation in that direction. Now, asking meaningful questions about the other person doesn't necessarily guarantee that they're going to give you meaningful answers in return. But if you keep steering the conversation that way, they're more likely to open up, because you're showing them that that's what you care about. You care about their experience rather than just caring about yourself or just caring about external things. So to summarize, there are 3 types of responses that you can give in any conversation. You can talk about me, or you, or it. So yourself, the other person, or some external thing. Steering the conversation towards the other person makes the conversation meaningful for them, which means they're more likely to then steer the conversation towards you, which makes it meaningful for you. It should feel balanced. Now, here's your challenge for today. I want you to come up with a new response to the statement, I've mostly just been working a lot, I haven't had much time for other things. And make sure that your response steers the conversation towards learning about the other person. And then post your response in the comments below. And if you haven't set up a meeting yet with someone who you want to have a meaningful conversation with, do that now, so you can try this stuff out. This is the text message for you to send from yesterday's video. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. And tomorrow I've got a new video for you, and it has a new way to make conversations meaningful, which is something that you may also be getting wrong, so look out for that.